He felt fate was punishing him. He had told Elizabeth Jane she was his daughter. He had searched in his drawer for proof of this. The terrible thing was that no sooner had he taught the girl to claim him for her father than he discovered that she had no real relationship to him. He was far too proud to retreat from opposition, especially when it would be so humiliating. Now that he had told her she was his daughter, she should always have to think of herself as his daughter. But Henchard was not prepared for the first step in this new situation. The moment he came into the breakfast room, Elizabeth Jane got up and took him by the hand. I have thought and thought all night about it, she said, and I see everything must be as you say. I am going to look upon you as the father that you are, and I won't call you Mr. Henchard any more. It is so plain to me now. Indeed, father, it is. For of course you would not have done half the things you have done for me, and let me have my own way so much. If I had been only your stepdaughter, Mr. Newson, whom my poor mother married by such a strange mistake, was very kind. But that is not the same as being one's real father, after all. Now, father, breakfast is ready, she said cheerfully. Henchard bent and kissed her cheek, but it brought him no pleasure now. His joy was all turned to dust and ashes. Then on, Henchard became cold and distant, and Elizabeth Jane, of course, could not understand why. The very morning after telling her that he was her real father, he changed. The coldness soon broke out into open argument. Her use of local country words instead of the correct words a real lady would use annoyed him particularly. Elizabeth Jane did her best to use the right words and tried to improve herself by reading as much as possible. But she never seemed able to please him. More and more he left her in the house alone. So she lived on, unhappily for most of the time. She feared Henchard's temper, but his coldness was even harder for her to bear. Things became even more difficult for Elizabeth Jane at home when Henchard, whose 2 year period as mayor was coming to an end, became aware that he would not be appointed alderman and that Farfrae was likely to become one of the council. This made him feel very badly. Then, thinking over his foolish jealousy in forbidding Farfrae to see this girl who did not belong to him and whose manners annoyed him, he wrote to Farfrae. He said he did not wish to interfere in Farfrae's friendship with Elizabeth Jane. If he cared for her, that he withdrew his objection. This, he thought, would make Farfrae think better of him, and it might also solve his problem about having to look after Elizabeth Jane. Whenever she could, Elizabeth Jane visited the churchyard where her mother was buried. One morning, when she was there, she saw a dark figure standing in front of her mother's grave. A lady was reading the words on Mrs. Henchard's tombstone. She was in mourning like herself, but much more beautifully dressed than Elizabeth Jane. They spoke, and the lady asked about her mother and Mr. Henchard and herself. Elizabeth Jane told her all that she remembered about her past life and her new friend did not seem shocked by her tale. This cheered her. It was not until she thought of returning to her father's house, where she had recently been treated so roughly, that her spirits fell. I don't know how I can return, she murmured. I think of going away, but where can I go? Perhaps it will be better soon, said her new friend gently. I shall soon want somebody to live in my house, partly as a housekeeper, partly as a companion. Would you like to come to me? Oh, yes, cried Elizabeth Jane, with tears in her eyes. I would, indeed. I would do anything to be independent, for then my father might begin to love me. But I am uneducated, and a companion to you must be educated. Oh, not necessarily. No, but I speak badly and write badly, even though I try to do both properly. Never mind. But where do you live? I am going to live in Casterbridge after today. The house I am going into is called High Place Hall, the old stone one looking down on the marketplace. Now, will you think over my proposal and meet me here the first fine day next week and say if you will come? Elizabeth Jane, her eyes shining at the thought of a change from her unhappy position, joyfully agreed, and the two parted at the gate of the churchyard. Elizabeth Jane planned to tell Henchard of her wish to leave his house that very evening. Depending, of course, on his mood, she anxiously waited until he arrived home. He showed no signs of being angry, just of being completely cold towards her. This encouraged her in her wish to leave, even more than his hot temper would have done. Father, do you have any objection to my going away? Going away? No, none whatever. Where are you going? She thought it better not to say exactly. He would know soon enough. I have heard of an opportunity of getting more cultivated, better educated, and being less idle, she answered with hesitation. Then make the best of it, in heaven's name. If you can't get cultivated where you are, you don't object. Object? I? No, not at all. After a pause, he said, but you won't have enough money for this scheme without help, you know. If you like, I will give you an allowance so that you will have a little more than the low wages you will be bound to get from such people. She thanked him. It had better be done properly, he added after a pause. A small yearly sum is what I should like you to have, so that you can be independent from me, and I from you. Would that please you? Certainly. Then I'll see about it this very day. He seemed relieved to get her off his hands by this arrangement. As far as they were concerned, the matter was settled. She now simply waited to see the lady again. The day and the hour came, and she went off to the appointed place. The lady was waiting for her. Well, she said, have you decided? Yes, quite, said Elizabeth Jane eagerly. Your father is willing? Yes, then come along. When? Now, as soon as you like. Today, my house is so empty that I want someone living there with me. I think I could come today, said the girl. Have you told your father where you are going? Asked the lady. No. Oh, why not? I thought it safer to get away first, as I am never quite sure what he will think about anything. Perhaps you are right. Besides, I have never told you my name. It is. Miss Templeman. Well, I shall expect you this evening, say at 6.